Erev Tov Rabotai, we're continuing with our Mishna Yomi Masechet Challah. We're up to Perek Daled Mishnah Aleph. Today's Mishnayot should be Nishmat Neria ben Svedlana Aranbayev and Eliyahu ben Burcha Israelov Menuchatam Began Eden Amen. We know two portions of dough, each of which is too small to be subject to the obligation of Challah, but together are large enough to be subject to Challah, can, under certain circumstances, combine into a single Challah liable dough. Earlier we learned in chapter 2, Mishnah 4, a machloket, the Tana cited a machloket, a dispute regarding how they must be attached for them to combine. According to the Chachamim, the opinion of the sages, the two doughs must bite into each other, meaning that they must stick to each other so firmly that some of one dough would remain attached to the other if they were to be pulled apart. According to Rabbi Eliezer, if the two doughs are placed touching each other in one basket, they can combine. Today's Mishnah is going to note to us other conditions that must be met for the combined dough to be subject to Challah. The Mishnah says, Shte nashim she'asu shne kabin, if two women made two doughs of one kav each, which Mefarshim explain, each dough did not contain the minimum amount of flour that's subject to Challah. Now this Mishnah, which discusses a case where the doughs together contain two calves of flour, is following the opinion we're going to see in Masechet Eduyot, chapter 1, Mishnah 2, that a dough is not subject to Challah obligation unless it was made with a minimum of two calves of flour. The Halakha, however, follows the view that there is a Challah obligation as long as the dough was made with 1 1/4 calves of flour, like we kept saying repeatedly. Now, although the Mishnah discusses women, the ruling of this Mishnah applies equally to men as well. The reason that the Mishnah picked women here is because they bear the main responsibility of fulfilling the mitzvah of Challah. The Mefarshim say it here, and we'll see it in Masechet Shabbat, chapter 2, Mishnah 6, with the Rav's commentary. Now, Shte nashim she'asu shne kabin, if two women made two doughs of one kav each, v'nagu ze bazeh, and the two doughs touched each other, forming a combined dough large enough to be subject to Challah. Now, according to Rabbi Eliezer, the doughs touched while in the same basket, and according to the Chachamim, they stuck to each other so firmly that some of one dough would remain attached to the other if they were to be pulled apart. Afilu hem mimin echad piturim, the halacha is that even if the two doughs were made from the same kinds of flour, they are exempt from a Challah obligation because the combined doughs of different people are not viewed as a single dough, because since each woman is careful to keep her portions separate, each dough is considered on its own. In fact, even if the women would knead their portions together in a single large dough, but they plan to bake each portion separately, the doughs of the two women are viewed as being separate. But when the two doughs belong to one woman, the halakha is as follows: Min b'mino chayav. If one kind of dough is joined with its own kind of dough, for example, if both doughs are made of wheat flour, the combined doughs is subject to Challah. And Mefarshim explained, typically a woman does not mind if her own doughs touch each other or join together, and therefore when they join together they're considered one large dough as long as they're made from the same type of flour. However, if one kind of dough is joined with another kind of dough, so for example wheat dough with barley dough, the combined dough is exempt from the Challah obligation, because the Mefarshim explained normally when a woman makes two doughs from different kinds of flour, she is careful to keep them separate. Now, nevertheless, if a single dough is needed from a mixture of different kinds of flour, the varieties do combine to establish a Challah obligation. Again, referring back to chapter 1, Mishnah 1, when we spoke about which species would be Chayav. And that is in Rabotai of Mishnah Aleph. Mishnah Ben now continues based off what we just said, that two small portions of dough that are touching combine into a single Challah liable dough if the two portions are made min b'mino from the same kind of flour. There are 5 types of grain that are subject to the Challah obligation: wheat, barley, spelt, oats, and rye. This Mishnah discusses which of these types of grain are considered mino, the same kind, and combine with one another to become a single Challah liable dough. Ezehu min b'mino, which grains are similar enough to be viewed as a kind of grain combined with its own kind, with regards to combining it into a single Challah liable dough. Hachitim ena mitztafot imakol ela imakusemin. Wheat does not combine with any grain other than spelt, meaning wheat is not similar to barley, rye, or oats, and therefore it does not combine with those grains. But wheat is similar to spelt, and those two grains will therefore combine. And the Mefarshim explain Therefore, a wheat dough and a spelt dough combine to form a single large dough that is subject to challah. However, a wheat dough and a dough made from any of the other three species are viewed as separate and both are exempt from challah. This, however, applies only to separate doughs that were joined. We learned earlier in chapter 1, Mishnah 1, when flours of 2 or more of the 5 grains are kneaded together, they combine into a single large challah dough, regardless of whether the types of flours are similar or not. Right? We're talking now about separate doughs that were joined. If they were kneaded together, that would be fine. That would combine. Barley, on the other hand, the Mishnah continues, combines with every grain except for wheat. Barley is similar to spelt, rye, and oats, but is not similar to wheat, and therefore barley combines with spelt, rye, or oats, but not with wheat. And the Mefarshim explain, spelt is unique, that it shares characteristics with both wheat and barley, and therefore it can combine with either one. Rye and oats, however, share characteristics and therefore combine only with barley, not with wheat. Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri says, Shara minim mitztarfin ze im ze, the other kinds of grain besides wheat and barley, which we're left with spelt, oats, and rye, they all combine with one another. And the Mefarshim explain, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is not arguing with the Tana Kama. He's providing information about spelt, rye, and oats that were not explicitly taught by the Tana Kama. The Tana Kama defined the status of wheat and barley, but not the status of spelt, rye, and oats. Now, nonetheless, we already know that according to the Tana Kama, spelt combines with either wheat or barley, while rye and oats combine with barley, but not with wheat. We do not know, however, whether these three grains combine with one another. So therefore, Rabbi Yochanan ben Nuri is now explaining that the Tana Kama holds these three grains do combine with one another, and this is how Mefarshim explained it, the Rambam according to Kesef Mishnah in Ilchot Bikurim chapter 7 Halakha 3, and therefore in summary, wheat combines only with spelt combines with everything, barley, rye, and oats combine with each other and with spelt, but not with wheat. And whoever can see in the article elucidated a very nice chart that they bring down, what combines with what. That is an Abotai of today's Mishna Yomi. Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen v'Amen.